In this video, we're going to do a step-by-step build of a simple group chat app. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so we are going to build a simple chat app. It's going to be a group chat app. Now I have already done some work, so I'll go through what I've done. Basically all the authentication stuff and a little bit on Supabase. So I'll go through what I've done, but the actual chat functionality we're going to do step by step. The authentication, I've done a few videos that covers all these relevant different bits. So these will be on the screen now, and the ones you can go and check those out so you can get to this point. So what have we got? So we've got login and create account. And basically what these do, I will run over them quickly, but we're not going to build those. These obviously step by step. So create account, usual email address and password. We're using Supabase Auth. The Google sign up is just a button there. It's not been set up for this at this point. I have a blank mobile app template, which all this stuff is already pre-set up. So that's what I'm using, and this I'll sort of activate as needed pretty much. So on your create account, you click create account button, and what this does is simply create your account within Supabase and navigate you to the login page. And then when you log in, username and password, log in and navigate the dashboard, although you don't actually technically need that because we're not using custom. We've got the navigate automatically checked, so we don't actually need that because we're not using custom login actions. So what will happen is we will automatically navigate to the dashboard page basically when we log in, which we can turn off by unchecking that. Again, there's a video on that as well, what I've done, also be available on the screen if you want to do something different on here. And then all that's going to do is take us to our dashboard, which is blank, and this is where we're going to build our group chat elements in here. So send and receive messages within a group. And then the other things I've done is the forgot password and the update email. It's all been done, all pre-set up. Again, you can go and check out those videos to sort that stuff out. And then on the users page, again, this is just user settings. We've got changing your email, changing your password, and then username and change username. So if you tap on change username, it will take you to the update. We haven't set that up yet. We're going to do that in a second. So you can update your username. So let's do that first, and then I'll show you what we've done in Supabase to get to this point. Update username. Okay, right, that takes us to there. So if I bring up Supabase, and then we can start building the actual chat functionality. Okay, so I have created 3 tables. First is the users table. We've basically put in their email, user ID and their username. So when we create the username or update the username within our Flutterflow app, it will be in here. And then we've got a groups table. So at the moment we've got the ID, when it was created, and the name of the group. We need to add a column for group members, which we'll do as we go along. And then we've got the actual messages. So again, the message itself, the group, who sent the message basically. And so everybody within that group will be able to see that message and know who sent it. So it's going to be pretty simple. And then the other thing we've done is we have set up a trigger on a new user. So when a user signs up, so if we go back to create account, so when we create account, our user creates their Supabase authentication account with this action here, but that doesn't do anything in your users table. That's in the auth schema, not in the public schema where we want to work with it within our app. So with that, rather than trying to do it in here, what happens is every time a new row is created within our auth table, we are going to insert a new row also in our users table. Again, there's videos on this, come on the screen, you can go and check this out. And what we're doing, we are adding their user ID, their email, and a random username which they can change. So basically we're going to be user 123456 basically, or it can be a random 6-digit number, and that's the 3 elements going to be added to the users table on creation of a new record. So that'll be the random name, and it'll stay random unless they change it. So that's what we've done so far. I thought I'd set this up, get the sort of the authentication and all that stuff set up, because I don't see the need to keep going over it over and over. There is other videos on it and you can check those out, but now we can actually start building the chat functionality. Okay, so we're back in Flutterflow and we'll start building the chat part of this, which is the meat of it, obviously, which is what we want to do. Now, if you've seen any of these build as I go before, you'll probably already be aware that I don't actually plan this too much. I just start building and click record and then work it out as I go along. I've got a rough idea what I want to do, but I haven't actually thought about it that much, so you have to bear with me basically if you can. So what we've got here is our page where we want our chat, and we do want an app bar. Show this page on the nav bar, but we need to have 2 pages on the nav bar basically, don't we? So show nav bar, these 2 pages to show a nav bar set, that's fine, we know that. So we want to show that one on the nav bar, and we'll go to users settings, show that one on the nav bar. Okay, so that will change the icon to one of these, will be something other iOS. No, it won't. Okay, I normally got an iOS version, so just pick one. Settings, sharp. Okay, and then the chat. Okay, always show this on the. Okay, we can't. That's fine, right. And then dashboard. We don't want home. We'll call it. So we'll group. So this will be our chats, and call it. Well, we don't label. We're not going to show labels anyway, so that's fine. I think that looks a bit small, even though it's the same size as that, but we'll worry about that in a minute. And then that will do for now. And we'll probably want one to add group as well. Create a new group, but we'll come to that in a minute. So, okay, so let's put a nav, an app bar on here as well. And make that, I think we've got the primary background we're using there, are we? And elevation will be 0. Don't need the back button, but we will put some text in there. Normal size 18, we'll call it chats, conversations. And they actually we want, we will want one for groups, so you can change whichever group you are seeing on the screen. That's what, yes, we're going to need that shortly. So we've got our page set now. We've just got nothing on there apart from this column and the app bar and the nav bar. So if we put a row, no, we're on list view first. We're on a list view. Put a list view on the column because they're going to. That's where we're going to show our chats. I should stop clicking the wrong button there. So we put a row in there and then a container in the row. We want that to be about 60%, and we're going to have a, let's give it an elevation of 3 maybe, and we're going to have border radius of 8, and then don't have a border color. Secondary background we're going to do conditionally, so we won't worry about that for now. Have a minimum height of 50 pixels, but the actual height there, that doesn't look the best at that, does it? Let's have a minimum height of 100 pixels for now. Okay, now then, and then our start and end spacings in that column, that is going to be also be based on whether it's a incoming or outgoing message, so we can do them across. That's the plan. So if we go to our list view, I'll tell you what we're going to do first though. Let's change the colour of that temporarily to something else, just so we can see what we're doing. Right, so let's go to our list view, and it wants to be a base query, and we want to be messages. Okay, right, and we are going to need some padding on that, obviously. Maybe a bit more. Let's split the difference. I don't think it really matters. Okay, so within there we then need some text within the container. So if we go column, and we will need rows first. So let's get the column some padding against the container. Maybe 8 text. And the text, it will be 14. We'll leave it at that for now. We'll change it if we need to. That will be white, and the value of the text will be the user name. That will be the default, but okay, that will be user 1. Okay, that will be the user who sent the message, and then we want, so let's go some padding below there. And then we want another row and some more text, and that will be the message. So as that's a message, we'll need to expand the text, and it will need to be white again, and then the text itself will be the message. Need to give it a default variable. Right, so that's that. So how are we going to define if it's a user message, or so we need to know if the, okay, so let's go to colors first. So custom fill color, right, so and we'll go conditional, single condition, if the user ID is equal to, that's our authenticated user ID, equal to the user who added it, confirm, and then we will make that what colour should we use? Custom colours. We've got in the recents about the avocado green. Oh no, let's go that, that'll do. Else we will make it so if the user sent the message, it will be purple, and if they are receiving the message, we'll make it, we'll leave it as grey. Confirm. Right, so that should, if the user sends the message, go purple, and if it doesn't, obviously. And then what we'll do in here, start spacing, and if we again go in there, we want a single condition. So if our authenticated user is equal to the person that sent the message, which is that one, then we will have a spacing of, what do we got? Don't know. Let's go 50 pixels. I think this is how it works. And then else we'll make it 100 pixels. That's probably not enough or too much. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we'll find out, I guess. Right, so, and then, so I think we need to change the we've got a list of rows, and that's, yes, so we need, okay, so right, this is where we need to select your group. So if we need a new page, so if we add a page, create blank, we call it groups, and then bar, we will secondary background, I think that's what we're using on this one, and elevation of 0. Right, so we want basically a list of groups. So again, we want a list view. And then we want a row. So we'll keep this pretty simple if we can. And then we want some padding there either side. And let's put in an icon. Something just to represent groups. We already used one, so already used one of those, haven't we? So let's go for the outlined one, and then text. That will be the group name. Make it a bit bigger, and with that, and then let's put the title in. Okay. Let's get rid of that. So I've just replaced the up bar that's on the table on the page when you load it. Just did it again because of that thing with the text there, and then because that'll just make life a bit easier. And then that would be, we're doing 18, aren't we? And that will be my groups, because all we're going to do there is have a list of groups, and then that's going to be basically what we pass into, and then we'll have this on the app bar, on the nav bar rather, and the icon for that one will be, put the groups plus thing because that's where you're going to add groups as well. Right, okay, and then we'll probably put a thing over there shortly for that. Right, so we need to then do something when adding members to a group or having members in a group. Okay, right, so we need a way of our users to adding themselves into a group. So what we're going to do to keep it simple, just going to make the assumption that this is an app for people that are, you know, friends, all know each other, because again, just to make this simple for the purpose of this, so that means you can just automatically add yourself to a group rather than having to ask permission and that kind of thing. So what will happen is click on the icon and you'll add yourself into the group. These will be the groups available. They're basically public groups, so it's going to be a public chat forum kind of scenario. And then what else do we need on the UI? So add to the groups. We need to do something super based for the group members of the groups. We'll come to that shortly. Do we like the square? Probably not. There you go, that's better. Because that's where I've been. Everything else is on the app is that shape. So right, group. So we've got that, and then the other thing we need, which we haven't yet done, is on the chat page. We need to add, obviously, a way of sending a message. So scroll down to the bottom and your form elements, and we want a text field, but we want that to be okay. So if we now work in a minute, right, do that for now. So that will want a some work, so change the label to basically what's your message, and we'll give it a border. So border colour, I've already got a border. I'm not sure you'll see that particularly well. We're using blue in other areas, but I think keep it grey, it looks a bit more modern. And the focus border colour, again, we'll go to secondary text, and we want to have the max lines is that, the minimum lines is 1, so that means it will expand as you type. Right. You can't really see that at all, can you? Because we've got the border type. That's why. There we go. Outline. Now the border looks terrible. So we'll get there in a minute. Make the border. Yes, no, that just doesn't look. I suppose I'll go create another grey, but that doesn't look the best, but that's fine. And then I want a row, and let's give that some padding at the bottom, and then on there, in fact, let's drag that into that row, and then what we want to do, make this look a bit better, put an icon, there we go, icon to the side, and that icon, so let's give this the padding, and then go to the icon, send, the old classic send icon. What do we think? Doesn't really matter, does it? No, let's go with that one. So when you tap the icon, it will send the message. So type your message in there, click send, update your list view. List view is set to primary, so that should scroll. And yeah, right. So what we need to do in Superbase, so we've got our groups page, but we need to populate the list view because obviously we haven't yet done so, and that would be the list of groups basically, whether you're a member or not. And then what we'll do, maybe make the icon conditional if you're in the list or not. So we can actually do that now. Base query, and we want groups, and want all the rows with no filters because it's going to be public forum. And then after doing that, on that row we need some padding, and we'll have a list of groups, and then this icon will make conditional whether the person is a member of the group or not. So if they're not, they won't be able to add themselves already in it. If they are, we may be putting them in there saying to remove themselves from it, but we may not go that far with this. We'll see how we're doing for time. Right, so we now need to add something in Superbase. So in the groups table, basically we've got the group name, and basically that's it really, just when it's created. And so we need to add a column for group members. And I'm not sure this is going to work. Will it allow us to do that? There we go. So that'll be the members UUIDs. So what will happen is when somebody joins a group, their UUID will go in there. So if we head back to here, and on that button we can now add an action. Oh, no we can't. What we need to do first is go and update our schema, because as you can see the groups, we now have the members list. So on that button, and we're going to add a custom action which I have already created, so you don't have to sit and watch me type because it's not the most entertaining thing in the world. I will show you that in a second. The code snippets, they will be all as usual available to download in the comments below. So it's called add to list, and we are adding the authenticated user's user ID. Now we're using that instead of the username, because if you change your new username it'll mess things up. So user ID is constant, and the group's row, so that will be the name of the group. That the parameters we are passing into the action, and we're not returning any values because we just add into the list, so that's fine. So we'll probably need a dialog box to say you've been added to the list or something, but we'll come to that in a second. So the action we are calling is this one, and it's called add to list, and we are calling a Superbase function via remote procedure call, which is called add member to group. We're passing in the username, sorry, the user ID and the group name as parameters to the function. That is basically what we're doing. And then in Superbase, again, I have already done this to speed things up a bit, and we've got the function add member to group, passing in user ID and the text, and we're just appending the array members with the new UUID value, where group equals group name basically. And then if we just go in database functions, we're there. Okay, so that's that. Right, now say so let's make that conditional. So if groups row item, member string, this contains item, authenticate user ID. Okay, so basically that if you're actually got that wrong, opposite statement. If the list doesn't contain the item, basically that's what we're doing now, the opposite statement. Then it will be, so you get the plus icon if you're not on the list, and we will do another one, we'll put another icon in there, but we'll need another custom action. I do that all the time. See the cog, so put that in there. Now obviously we need to then sort out the padding on the icon, so that make that one 10, and make that one 50. No, that'll do. And then the icon there will have minus. So that one there, and then basically that's to remove yourself from the group, and that will also be conditional, and that will be if you are on the list. So we are members list, list contains item, authenticated user, user ID, confirm, and then have we on that text there, not to be the group name, that'll be default variable. Okay, so we're going to end up with a list of groups which are going to be public, and we've got some weird different sized icons. That's because one was, let's change that to the font awesome version if there is one then. Okay, right. If we've got a list of, we should have a list of groups, and if we're not in the group, we should get the plus icon, which we can then press plus, and when we do press plus, it should add our name to the group. And if we are not in the group, then sorry, if we are in the group, then press minus, and we should be able, we'll create an action to remove us from the group, basically. So that's that. So I'll just give that a little bit more padding. Yeah, it's not ideal, but right. So that's that. So what's next? We need another action for that, don't we? So basically we can just copy that one, and that'll be remove, call it remove name, and then that will be remove name, and we'll call that remove member from group, and we're putting in the same arguments. So we are putting in user and group, and that. Perfect. And then if we go back to the add another custom action, which is remove name, and we're passing in the authenticated user, user ID, and the name of the group. So we don't yet have the super base side for that, so we'll do that in a second. Right, so that's that, and then the only thing we need to do then is, that's the chats, is create a group. So let's put some padding up there for a second, and we can drop a row then above the column. Give that padding, and then we want to create a group. So let's keep our, what pattern we got there? 20. Let's keep everything the same, obviously. And then we want to create, so we've got that stands for create. We've already used the group plus symbol a few times, haven't we? So and we've already used these a few times, haven't we? These, but okay, not a problem. We will. Have we used that one yet? Yeah, we've already not used the non-outline one. So add there, and text box. Excuse me. What have we got there? We've got some padding there. Is 10, and that will be create group. And then what we want to do then, we want to probably just navigate to a page and give it a name. It's probably the easiest thing to do. So if we duplicate the update email page, call that create group. Create group and call that group name. I appreciate I've kind of going a bit all over the place because I'm duplicating pages with red on, and obviously some of the others have not, or grey, but okay, so create group. Now when we do that, there, don't need any of that stuff, so we can delete the action chain, and we want to then super base, insert row into groups, and then the name will be the widget state, which will be text, and also we need to add members. I'm not sure it'll let me add the user ID. No, it doesn't do that for some reason. Okay, so we'll do that after. We'll do that afterwards. So just stick with the name, and we'll then add members to the group the way we've been doing it. So that's fine. And then what we'll do then, after you've added the group, we will add a delay for 1.5 seconds before you then get diverted back to groups. So basically you press OK or create group, you'll get a bit of a delay just while it's thinking, just so it doesn't instantly change and then get navigated straight back. So you don't need but we do need, in case you change your mind and you don't want to create a group, we want an app bar, and we want to show the button with secondary background elevation 0, no, nothing actually, no, 0, and then the background color is primary background, isn't it? So where's my button? Okay, not a problem. If you're going to play those games, we'll just close that and we'll put our own in there. One of these will be the iOS one, iOS new or something. iOS new, but I think all the others are an arrow, aren't they? So that'll do. Right, and what we'll do then, that just wants to be navigate back. Right. So, in summary, we're going to navigate to create group. Okay, so in summary, we've got a bunch of groups where we can add and remove ourselves from the groups. They're public groups. We can create a group, and we've got the chats for the group. So we don't yet need to pass a parameter from there to there, which we'll do next. And we also need to add the remove from the group stuff in Supabase, but I think I'm inclined to test that this actually functions before we get too far. So first thing we'll do then, if we go to chats, what did I call those? Dashboard, isn't it? That's why, because this is a boilerplate, my boilerplate, blank app, right, and page parameters. I'm going to add a parameter and we'll call it group. It's a string and is required. So we now should get an error. There we go. Right. So actually, because this is boilerplate, I'll remove the fact that it's required for now to get rid of the errors, because say we go hunting for where this might have been set up with a navigation button from somewhere what we're not playing with today. So back to groups, and then what we want to do is when you tap on the group name, we want to navigate to dashboard, which is where our chats are, and we want to pass the name of the group. And I think, so back to dashboard, did we set up the, what do we set up there? Yes, we did. So the list view, the backend query, we need to edit the messages, and our filter then is our group needs to equal our parameter. So we're pulling the message from the database, pulling the groups, and we're only pulling the ones for the group that we're created. And did we put the actions for creating a message? No, we didn't. Right, so what we need to do, just to summarize again, sorry, this is our group chat, and then we'll type a message, but we need to actually add the message to the database, so we'll do that on that button there. That's what it's for. So Supabase update row. No, it'll be actually insert a row, because it'll be just be a new chat. It'll be messages, and we are the fields we want are the message, obviously, which is the what's in the text field. We want the group, which is basically the parameter, and we want to add the originator. Now are we using the, yeah, we'll do that. It wants to be the user's that wants to be the user name, because then if it changes it's not the end of the world. However, this page doesn't have access to the user's username, so what we will do is on our user settings, when you change your username, that is update username. Okay, right, so we've got an action there. So what we're going to do, we're going to add an app state, and we're going to call it username. It's a string, we'll keep it persisted, which means when you sort of reload the app, log out, log in, it should remain on the device. Okay, and if we go back to there, so on the update button, because obviously the first thing you're going to do is update row, the user's row with username, but we'll also update page and app state username, and that will also be the value of the text box. And then say same thing, you've updated your username, and then navigate to settings. Right, that actually, did I say navigate to settings then? I think I did. That must be navigate to user, because the settings is a blank page. Let's navigate to users, which is there. Okay, right, so I think I'm going to test that in its current form and see why it breaks, because I'm sure it will, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I tested that and there was an error, so I fixed the error, and then I took the opportunity to go and run through a few more things, make a few changes and make sure everything functions. So I'll run you through exactly what I've done, so we're going to have to sit and watch me troubleshoot. So basically the trigger function had an error on it, and that was because on the users table I hadn't made the columns so they were unique, so therefore I was getting error on the update user function, and what I've also done, I've removed the inserting the random username out of this function because I thought a better way of doing it. I've also added the function to remove a user from a group, and it's exactly the same as the add a user, which is that one, and all we're doing is changing the append to remove, so that removes the user from a group. So that's what I've done in Supabase, as well as the other thing I did on the messages. I have, and I see I've added a couple just to make sure it functions. And what I've done, if you remember, the UUID is the user's unique ID, which is what we're doing to identify which user created the message. But obviously we also want the username, because that's what we want to display, because we don't want to display that. So I've added the username to the messages. So that's what I've done in Supabase. And over in Flutterflow, starting with the login, as I just said, what I did was remove add in the username as a random field when the user signs up. So when they log in, what we've got, as if you remember, we have got an app state variable with a persisted one for the username. And on login, what we're doing, we're checking if that's set or not, and if it's not set, we're going straight to groups, and if it is set, we're going to the update username. So you've got to put a username in before you start, so that's how we've covered that one off. And to do the custom login actions, we just switch off the navigate automatically toggle switch and do what we need to do there with the conditional actions. So I've done that, and then on the chat page I have changed a few things on here, which I'll just run through quickly. I've moved this box to make sure it sits at the bottom of the page and it's outside the main column because it was sitting inside it and it was moving down with it. I have added a refresh button, which I'll come to in a minute. But what I've done is the boxes, the custom alignment that I was going to use, I think I did it down here in the item spacing, that wasn't going to work. So what I've done, I have done it within the row. So our containers are aligned. The alignment here basically tells you where they sit within their parent, where the child element sits within the parent. And what I've done, if user ID equals user, i.e. if you're the one writing the message, it's -1, which is to the left, and if you're not, it's to the right. So essentially that's what that does. So that's conditional for, so our message is going to be either side of the screen. And then I added in there just an update on the insert row, so where each chat gets the username as well as the user ID. So we've done that. And also I have added a time element. So essentially that's just the created at within the Supabase table with the date time format just set to the time. And then on the groups, like I say, I've added the remove user from the group, so that just calls a custom action. We've already seen the SQL for it, and this is just the custom action in Flutterflow, which calls that function within Supabase to remove a user when you press the minus. So that's essentially what I've done. The only other thing is the refresh button, and all this does, so you click that and you can do a database refresh. So refresh database on the list view. Now the reason I've done that is because what we're not doing is listening for changes in the database. I think that's probably beyond the scope of this video. I'm going to do it though. What we're going to do, on another video, I'm going to set up where we can listen for changes in the database and the chat will update automatically. And within that we'll also do another one for push notifications, because that's been asked several times in the comments. So I'm going to do both of those based on this app, just to sort of increase its functionality a bit. But for now we have just got a refresh database option. So that's what I've done. So if we go into test mode and we can just demonstrate it working. Okay, so there we are, we're in test mode. We've got our group still, and we can obviously, we've got that bar. We're going to settings. I've removed the main chat page from the nav bar simply because you need to go, otherwise you can navigate into it without being in a group. So therefore I just moved it, so you have to go through groups page to go into the chats. It just kind of makes sense. So if we just go into that, there we go, we've got our chat either side, and I've set up another account as you saw so I can talk to myself. Okay, let's send myself a message to test it. So press send. There we go, with messages coming up. We need to clear the box, so we need to add that, and then maybe do something with the size of the boxes as well. So if I go on to the version I've got, so I've published to the web, so I've got a PWA on my phone, so I can just type myself a message. And if we refresh the database, there we go. Yes, that's another video. So that works. So what we need to do is just remove the text from that box and maybe do some of those, but we don't have to necessarily do that now, but we will just see what time we've got. No, the video's not overly long, so we want to unbutton. So we're refreshing database request, which is how we're getting the information up. So if we add an action in there and widget, we want to clear text fields. Text field 1. So there we go. So we're clearing text field 1 and refreshing the database request. And then if we look at the size of the container, we've set a width of 30%. and a minimum width of 30 pixels. Let's make that a minimum width of 30% as well, and that'll make them a bit wider. Should do. So if we instant reload, no, they've not really changed. Okay, let's make the containers then minimum width of 45%. I think that might look a bit better, just slightly less than half, obviously. So go back in test mode, do a reload, and I think that would probably cover us. There we go, that looks better, doesn't it? Right, so let's go yes, another video, and then just check the message box. There we go, perfect. So that functions. Okay, so that was meant to be that. However, even with a app as simple as this, I wasn't happy with the manual refreshing of the messages. It just, it's just not very good. So basically, I have set up something to have them automatically updating. Now what I've done, I've hacked it a bit. I'll show you how it should be done, which I haven't done in this video. I'm going to do a video on that specifically, and that's the database streaming and listening. But I've kind of found a way around that, and I've kind of hacked a method which I'll show you, which you can choose to use or not. But it does definitely works. So if I go over to Superbase, and we want to go into publications. Now, Superbase real time is how you do it, and what that does, I've actually put the messages table on there. I've selected it open because I'm in the process of putting together. I'm going to sort of update this app with a few more features, one of them being Superbase real time, and what that does, that basically broadcasts, for want of a better expression, the updates to the table, and then we'll have a custom action in Flutterflow which listens for them. So I'm going to do a video on that specifically, as I just said. So that's not what I've done this time. I have hacked it, for want of a better expression. So basically, API calls in Superbase are unlimited. You can have, even on the free tier, you've got unlimited API calls. Obviously, you've got bandwidth limits and that kind of thing, but the actual API calls themselves, you've got an unlimited amount. So based upon that, what I've done, if I go to the editor, basically what I'm doing is I've got a function here called getCount, and what it's doing is counting the amount of messages in a group. Essentially, that's all it does. And we're calling that from a custom action, obviously, which just returns an integer value. So what we're doing is we are querying the database, how many messages are there, and returning that value. And the way we're automatically updating the message, and this is where it becomes a hack, on page load. So once you have, so if we go back to groups, so once you click on your group, we've got a new action on page load, and we're getting the message count basically, as you can see there, and you can see it's done it 7 times so far. And the way we're achieving that is with a periodic action. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to sort of basically delete this one I've already created, and I will go through it again and show you how it's done and what it does. Okay, so basically a periodic action, if you go in utilities, they are down there somewhere, start a periodic action, and what it is, it's where we perform an action at a set time interval. So what we're going to do, we're going to set it up to query the database at a set time interval. Like I say, this is not necessarily the correct way of doing it, but it definitely works. So if you want to use this, then please feel free. The timer interval is the amount of time between us performing the action. So I'm going to go 30 seconds basically, just to keep it down. You can bring that down to as little as you want. And then what I have got, I have got create a couple of page dates, current count and new count. Okay, so, and they're both integers. So if we go back to, so there one, next action we want to do is update a page date, and that is the current count, and the value is basically the value of the page date of the new count. And I will come back to that and explain why I've done it that way in a second. And then we have a custom action, and that's get count. That's the one that I showed you a second ago, and the value we're passing into it is the name of the group, so we query the amount of messages assigned to that group, and then we've got an output and call it count, and that will be the current count. And then we need to just drag it a bit, update page date again, and that is new count. I want to set the value to the output, action output count. So what we're doing is getting the count and putting it in a page date, and then we had a conditional and a single condition. If new count is greater than current count. Okay, and then if it is, what we're going to do is perform a new database request, and that'll be refresh database request for the list view. And if it's not, we just add a terminate because we don't do anything, we just perform the action again in another 30 seconds. So back to the reason I did this on the page date, what we're doing, our page dates, both of them have a default value of 0, and then what we're doing, once we've done the action, start the action, and then the figure we get from the countdown here we're placing here, so that will give us the amount of messages that were in our list for the previous iteration of the action. And then we're going to get the new count, and then we're putting that into the new count variable and finding out if that is greater than it was the previous iteration through, basically. And if it is greater, so if there's more messages, we're doing refreshing the database request. And that's how I have set this up. Like I say, it's a bit of a hack, I suppose, but what happens is it works, and you can see, I mean, there it's message count up to 57, but the time's expired. But yeah, so it just works every 30 seconds. That will query and just update the database query and refresh your messages. So that's how I've done that. So I think that's a much better way of doing it than having the refresh button, which I removed. So that's now a much better functioning app, which I'm much more happy with. This base streaming, I'm gonna, like I said a few times, I'm gonna sort out, and I'm gonna put a video up for that, and I'll do it on this app. I've got a few things I'm gonna add, and I think we'll look at some encryption stuff, maybe picture messaging, replies, that kind of thing. I'll sort of build this out a bit. So with that said, I really do enjoy building these apps on the fly, making up as I go along. So if there's anything you'd like to see me do, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a crack at some different things. I've got a few ideas as well, so do some more of these, get them up. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. As always, all the code you've seen, including the stuff for this this updating, will be available in the link down below. If you enjoyed what you watched and got something out of it, please consider like and subscribe. It's a massive help, and I will speak to you next time.